Episode 154 of the Actors Room highlights the film Taxi Driver, done in 1976, starring Robert De Niro, Jodie Foster, Sybil Shepherd, and Albert Brooks. Directed by Martin Scorcese, who has 2 cameos in this film. I think the best way to describe this movie is a short statement I found, and I want to quote it for you. Quote, "Taxi Driver is a vivid fever dream we still haven't woken up from," end quote. I agree. A fevered dream. That's the feel of it. The script was written by Paul Schrader, and originally, he wanted the setting to be Los Angeles. Marty Scorcese felt New York City is a better choice. And I agree. When I think of taxi driving, when I think of taxis, period, especially back in the day, I thought of New York City. Los Angeles, not so much. So it just makes sense. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Actors Room highlighting a film. A film that should be studied by any actor or actress either wanting to get into the business or is currently on this ride. The ride of trying or being an actor. Because Robert De Niro puts on a display. Sit back, relax, grab that beverage of choice, hold it dear, sip it, chug it, whatever you got to do to enjoy it. Thank you, and here we go. The character, Travis Bickle, played by De Niro, is a troubled man trying to fit in to a troubled city, a dirty, disgusting cesspool city, and that's exactly what New York City was back in the 70s. Just dirty. And at that time, during filming, New York was filled with garbage. There was a garbage strike at the time, and thankfully so for the film. One thing that must be pointed out in regards to this film is the score. Bernard Herrmann's score is just chilling, simple, but true. It's intentionally devoid of strings, giving the overall thrust of the soundtrack more muscle. The horns that Herrmann gave to the feel of the picture. It hurts the soul, but it works in just making it a little bit more disturbing. We're in for a ride right from the start. In the beginning of the film, the music. It's sort of like when you hear somebody at the blackboard, scratching it. Or for me, I hate dry hands on dry carpeting. There's certain, even just the feel of it, the sound of it, I think that's what Herrmann, Scorsese, and Schrader wanted right off the bat. You know this is huge with me when I sit down to watch a picture. I think the first moments, I gotta feel like, you know what? The next hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe a little longer, are going to be worth it for me. Because the beginning just gets me. I'm like, that's the hook. Hook me. And they do. I just want to be clear before I get any further into the episode. I'm going to try to stay away from or shy away from the storyline, film, scenes, back to back to back. I sort of wanted this episode of the Actors Room highlighting a film to be a little more fun, loosey-goosey. I'm going to point out facts that happen offset. And then I'm going to point out a bit of the storyline and scenes to me that grabbed me, like the hook of the film in the very beginning. I'm going to sort of talk about certain scenes in the film that were important. So it might be a little bit different of a show. Not too long, maybe. I say that now, and the show is an hour and a half. But I just want to set that up. It's going to be a little choppy, but I hope it makes sense. So hang with me. We're going to try something a little different, new, with this episode of The Actors Room. Once again, my name is Jeff Tarowski. Always support the show. Haven't said that in a long time. I just sort of do the show without letting you know, my audience, that I have a website. I'm on YouTube, Libsyn.com. I'm on Apple, so you can go into Apple Podcasts, iTunes. I'm on there. And there's a couple of other platforms that you can go on. Search for The Actors Room, Jeff Tarowski, and I should come up. And in doing so, leave a review. It really does help the show a lot by way of having it a little bit more public. I don't put much money into the show at all. I have a monthly subscription to my hosting site, and that's it. I don't do anything else. So leaving a comment or clicking the stars on iTunes goes a long way, and it only takes 5 seconds. It doesn't take that long. If you love the show, click the stars. If you hate the show, click the star. And at least I'm getting some feedback. I haven't really gotten feedback in a while. So, getting all that shit out of the way, we are going to really try to figure out the Travis Bickle character. And as a young man in New York City back in the day, 1998, 99, I really concentrated on this film, among other films. This one, there was a special attention I brought to the character of Travis Bickle. And I really wanted to know what was going on inside this guy. So for the past 25 to 30 years, I'm still trying to figure him out. He's got to be one of the most interesting characters in film history to me because he's so socially awkward. I've never seen a more socially devoid character in film ever. He's almost like, for me, when I try to figure him out, he's almost like a teenager in certain ways in his progression as a man. Childlike in certain ways. And as we go through this episode, I may point out certain aspects of that during this ride. Because there are certain actions that Robert De Niro through Travis Bickle gives the audience that should make you go, why did he do that? And you feel for him, you don't. That's how interesting this character is. And trying to figure him out was quite the journey for me. Because I don't think I've gotten there yet. I might have cracked the surface and got a little bit closer in a way. But he's a tough nut to crack. And I remember that I named one of my pet fishes that I had in my little apartment in New York City. I would always have to have some sort of pet. And I would have fish. And one of the very first fish I had in New York, I named Travis. Or was it Bickle? But I should have asked my wife about that. It might have been Bickle, actually. That's how much I sort of not looked up to the character, but I looked up to De Niro. And how much this role sank its teeth into him. For example, let's say it right now. Robert De Niro. He is a method actor to the highest degree. For instance, he made it a point to become a taxi driver in New York City. 12 hours at a stretch, driving around as a taxi driver, for real. No kidding. I'm not sure how long he did this, but it was a while. I don't want to put a certain number on it. Let's just say this. Months of preparation for this role, driving as a taxi driver. I've never dabbled in this. Hey, this is a big thing now. Okay. People driving around, delivering food, delivering people. And today it's easier because you have GPS. But back then, DeNiro must have been very well versed and knowledgeable about locations in New York, the streets. I couldn't have done it. I can ride in a taxi in New York City, but heaven forbid someone said, take me from here to there, in all the boroughs and everything. No way. No way. There was only 2 times I drove through the city of New York, and I don't know how I did it. I think I did it with my eyes closed. So I give props to DeNiro for doing that. And he learned what it was like. An actor like DeNiro does this because he feels he has to. It's essential for him to do that, or he would never have done the role. And it shows. He was the taxi driver. He was Travis Bickle. He took that on. He took it seriously. He would interview veterans that were in Vietnam because the character of Travis Bickle was a Vietnam vet, a Marine. And that also plays into his character's weirdness, his awkwardness, the way he carries himself, what he does to his body, good and bad. What do they call that? PTSD, where you're in battle or just being a part of the armed forces, and everything you experience, the negative aspect of war, combat, relationships in the armed forces is damaging to your psyche, to your physical health as well. And Travis Bickle's character, that character went through that. And you see that in the final product. This guy's going through shit. And it's almost like, and I find this interesting, was a piece of Travis Bickle, the innocent Travis Bickle, before he went to Vietnam, was it lost in battle and what he went through back there? And when he came back home to New York, was he a completely different man or just damaged in ways where there are certain things taken from him and he's maybe trying to get it back? That piece of innocence, the goodness, all the shit he experienced in Nam and coming back to the shithole New York City and trying to make sense of that. And is there something I could do to make it better? That's the whole thought of the plot line for me, is a man trying to find his way. And in a way, he does. Travis Bickle takes action. In preparation for the role, as I stated, driving around New York City in a taxi cab meant that he had a lot of passengers. Many passengers. And DeNiro had won an Academy Award not long before that for Godfather Part 2. He says he was recognized 1 time. How is that possible? I guess back in 1975, 76, there weren't many people watching the Oscars, or they just didn't recognize him. I mean, it's not like today. I get it. Social media and all that stuff did. I mean, that was way off in the 70s. But recognized only once, I find fascinating. He really was incognito. And is it possible that DeNiro maybe wore a hat when he was a driver, or sort of made his appearance seem different? And it seems to me, too, New York City is a bit different of a place anyway, because there are famous people walking around New York City. They're out there. And there are many people walking around the streets of New York, so they blend in better. But if you were to go to New York City and spend, say, a month there, say you had a temp job and you're walking from here to there, I'm going to tell you, if you pay attention and just see faces and look at faces in the street when you're walking in the city, in that month time, you're going to see at least 3-4 people. You're just going to, they're walking around. But it's sort of normal for the people there. And they don't bother them. And that's just the New York feel. This film was nominated for 4 Oscars. Best Picture, Best Actor for DeNiro, Best Supporting Actress for Jodie Foster, and Best Music for Herman. No wins, but 4 nominations. I get it. This film in 1976 did well. Jodie Foster has said in a few interviews that she credits Robert De Niro with introducing her to the true craft of acting. She says he would insist that we'd meet for coffee and rehearse the scenes together at a local diner. After a while, Jodie says, she became bored with this until De Niro began to improvise, going off script. Jodie soon learned to follow this technique, the improv, weaving back and forth. This is what Jodie says. De Niro would do the scene, right? A couple lines of dialogue, word for word, and then break off into improv. Come back to the script for a few lines. Then pause, take a moment, and improv. That is fucking brilliant. I never heard of that before, doing my research on this film. And I love improv. Those of you who listen to my show know that. I think it's essential. There are actors that hate it. I think it's extremely valuable. It shows you that there are other dimensions to the character. And you find out new things about the character and you. As an actor, I find that improv can open so many doors. This is what happened with Foster. And her working with Robert De Niro opened up doors for her in her young career. I mean, she will end up being nominated for an Oscar in her performance. And I think most of that is because of the time that De Niro took with her. He knew that as young as she was, they may struggle in their work together. So he made sure, by God, that he was going to hire the percentage of them doing a better job by working together. And it's as simple as going to a diner, going over your lines, and really doing it. That's because sometimes it takes me a little bit to put my words together. But let's put it this way. Robert De Niro is a fucking actor, period. He walks, talks, sleeps, shits, farts, pisses, acting. You could tell. The guy, even to this day, I think, is like that. And I'm going to try to get an actor I've been in touch with for a very long time, who has worked with De Niro a few times. And I'm going to try to get him on my show, have a nice conversation. This is an actor that is under the radar, but you have seen him in a few things. And he's worked with De Niro a few times. And it would be just wonderful to talk to him about that. Just talking to someone who's worked with De Niro would be, let's just put it this way, it would be fruitful for my show. But getting back to Foster, working with Bob, let's call him Bob, working with Bob like that, and her insecurities being taken away because Bob took the time. Bob's something else, isn't he? He's something else. Do you think he's probably one of the best actors ever? You're not the only one. Director Martin Scorcese. Haven't mentioned him really yet. I mentioned him a little bit in the beginning, but let's get into what he says about the film. He says It's my feminist film, which I found interesting. So I had to delve deeper into that. Why is it his feminist film? He says it because it takes macho to its logical conclusion. The better man is the man who can kill. This movie shows that kind of thinking, shows the kinds of problems some men have, bouncing back and forth between their perception of women as goddesses and whores. End of quote. One thing I find about Marty that I can admire are his guts. Scorsese doesn't beat around the bush with his words describing things. He goes right for it. There was much clashing between director Scorsese and the executives at Columbia Pictures. The executives felt that this movie, especially the ending, which I get, was too violent. Way too violent. The colors, way too bright red. Marty, disheartened by the negative feedback that he got, was depressed by it. This was his film. He put his heart and soul into it and felt what he put on film should be it. He didn't want to mess with it at all. And executives saying, if you don't change this thing, they were going to make it an X-rated movie. And nobody is going to see it except for the perverts or the people that really enjoy. I don't want to put a label on anybody that solely watches X-rated movies. Maybe they just have a different taste of art. But back in 1976, how many people are going to watch this if it's X-rated? Marty was so upset and depressed by this that he nearly committed suicide because of it. That's what I found out. He was that pissed, heartbroken, just torn. And from what I understand, doing research on Scorsese at this time, in the 70s, he was pretty deep-rooted with addiction. I believe mostly cocaine. So he was shattered, sort of here and there, in a dark place at times. And this really affected him. I'm going to further acknowledge this by going ahead and stating this here. It says on my paper, Scorsese stayed up all night drinking with a loaded gun in his hand, preparing to shoot the executive at Columbia Pictures the next day. Folks, holy shit. After an entire night of persuasion from his friends, Scorsese decided to mute the colors in the violent climax and subsequently got his R rating. There are many variations on this legend, one saying that Marty was planning to take his own life. Another says that he brought the gun to Columbia Pictures and threatened the executive until the executive relented. And I just want to say this, just taking a moment here, and realizing that Scorsese is a pretty intense guy. If you've seen him in interviews, intense, fast talker. I mean, he's just that guy. And what I just said about Marty, take it with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean it's true, but what I just said. This is just the research I did. Is it true? It might be. Just imagine all the things that go on to get a movie done. I can't even imagine it. And how that sort of tears at you, especially directors, man. And I get it, acting can tear you apart, especially method ones like DeNiro. They get so into it. And method actors are really feeling it inside. He feels it. So that'll tear you apart too. But Marty really went through it. Before, during, and after Taxi Driver. Let's not forget this. This is a controversial film in many ways, but mostly because John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan Monday, March 30th, 1981. And I remember this. I was 6 when this happened. I remember Reagan was trying to get into a car, and that's when Hinckley tried to get him. And 6-year-old Jeff has memories of that. Little Jeff, standing in the family room in front of the TV, in the clips being shown. It was such a big deal. And when I did my Robert DeNiro episode, a long time ago, I mentioned that through my research at that time, years ago, that DeNiro really doesn't like talking about this film. Not because of him diving so deep it disturbed him and his acting performance, not that. It's because of the assassination attempt and how he sort of felt responsible. And in that light, doesn't boast about this film. He doesn't boast about his performance because of that. And how it influences people to assassinate presidents, political people. Because in Taxi Driver, Bickle tries to assassinate a political figure. The writer Paul Schrader, when constructing his script, and especially the flow of dialogue in creating character, felt that his greatest influence, or the actor he saw as Bickle at the time of writing, was closely resembled to Jeff Bridges. And that was his first choice, Jeff Bridges. And Jodie Foster's character, Iris, was supposed to be originally Melanie Griffith. So take a moment to think about that. If Schrader got who he felt best suited the roles, you would have Jeff Bridges as Bickle and Melanie Griffith as Iris. Talk about a completely different film. And I have great respect for Jeff Bridges. You have no idea. What a wonderful actor and a hell of a man. But as Travis Bickle, that would have just been... For some reason, I can't imagine it. And then the dynamic of having Melanie Griffith at that time. And I didn't write down the age that Griffith would have been at that time. I'm assuming a young teenager. And her mother, Tippi Hedren, was completely against this idea. And there was no way that she would have her daughter in a film like this. So it makes you think about something else. The parents of Jodie Foster were okay with their daughter doing this. And that makes me scratch my head too, because would I be okay with my 12-year-old daughter? 12. Because you really gotta... Sometimes people don't get that. When you say, yeah, she was 12 years old. Sometimes you have to point that out with aggression. 12 years old. In this kind of movie. Playing a prostitute. I don't think I'd let my daughter do that. But maybe I would. I don't know. It's never been presented to me. I think Jodie Foster turned out okay. I haven't done research on Jodie Foster. I can't tell you. I think she's wonderful. I think she's probably one of the most talented actresses ever. But I haven't done much research about her. That would be good. Jodie Foster would be a good one. And I'm sure she has stories. Growing up in the business, playing this character. And she comments that the people surrounding this film did protect her. This is coming from her, so if anything shady happened on set, she's not saying that happened. You could come away from this however you want. Oh, it's wrong to have a 12-year-old playing this role. And then you can come out on the other side saying it's art, she was protected, it worked for the project, and she did a fine job. Nominated for an Academy Award for her performance. Let's go ahead and touch on a few of the other actors in this film. And I want to state that nobody gave a bad performance in this movie, in my opinion. Others may disagree and say, Albert Brooks? What were they thinking? And I say, Albert Brooks, fine job. The guy can act. You mostly know Albert Brooks being silly. But he's an actor. And Paul Schrader felt he gave one of the best performances in the film. Paul Schrader, the writer and scriptwriter of this film, the creator of this, said that character he played, Albert Brooks played, he never understood him, even as he wrote him. And when he saw Albert Brooks' performance as this character, he said, he helped me understand him a little bit more. It was such a wonderful performance. And Brooks was allowed to improvise a lot of his lines to further describe what this guy's all about. I think Albert Brooks did a wonderful job. Let's go ahead and talk about Sybil Shepherd as Betsy, the love interest to Robert De Niro's character of Travis. Personally, I'm not a fan of Shepherd's acting. I think she's average to below average. She's gorgeous. What a beautiful woman. And this is her best acting. It is said Sybil Shepherd had a hard time remembering her lines during her scenes. It goes to show you right there. Because she had worked before in the business. This wasn't her first gig. She had done a handful of films, and big ones, actually, before this. She's having trouble with her lines. And ladies and gentlemen, she didn't have that many lines. So what? De Niro, in her class, no shit. You got 12-year-old Jodie Foster acting, circles around someone like a Sybil Shepherd. And what I can't believe is that she gave a good performance. She did. I mean, I think she did. I thought that her scenes with Robert De Niro as Travis were very good. I believe them. I'm not dissing on Shepherd in any way in this film. And every time I watch it, too, because I'm not a fan of hers, I'm just not. And every time I watch this film, I'm looking for something. I'm like, where can I get her? I'm like, nah, that's not it. And I'm like, okay, maybe here she fucks up. And I'm like, not really. She gets every moment with De Niro. But I guess that's pretty easy when you're working with De Niro then. He's that good. He helps you. Great. Let's move on to Harvey Keitel. He was supposed to play the Albert Brooks character and felt that it'd be a little more challenging to play the pimp. So that's what he does. He plays the pimp and plays it well. And if you've listened to my show in the past, I will bring up Keitel here and there if he relates to my show. And I think he's come up several times. I'm on the fence with Keitel. Sometimes he's great, and I'm just blown away by him. And other times, I go, why did you mail in that line? I mean, he plainly mails in from time to time. But in this, he doesn't. Not at all. He's sleazy. I get it. Wonderful. He's wonderfully horrible and gives some really touching moments and creepy moments related to the film It Works with the young Foster in their dance scene. I mean, Foster was protected. That's what I heard. So I guess we're okay with this. It works for the film. And Keitel and everyone else, all the actors, wonderful. Let's go ahead. We're going to point out a few scenes in the film. I'm going to casually go through the best scenes, best moments, the memorable line in the film, and then we're going to wrap it up. And before we do any of that, I'm going to go ahead and look to see if there's any other notes that I could point out. Yeah, here's a good one. Producer Julia Phillips claimed Scorsese cast Shepard as Betsy because of the size of her ass. It added to the sex appeal. Phillips further revealed that Scorsese and Shepard had a difficult relationship on set, with Scorsese having to feed Shepard lines during her scenes. Oliver Stone. That's right. Director and brilliant Oliver Stone believes he was one of the models of Travis Bickle, pointing out that he was being taught by Scorsese at New York University Film School earlier on in his life. And at the time, he was like Travis, a Vietnam veteran, a New York City taxi driver, and Oliver says he wore an olive drab army coat while on duty, just like Travis. He's got a point there. And hey, I believe it too. Jodie Foster says when she first met DeNiro when she was 12 years old, she found him to be extremely uninteresting. Quote, one of our greatest American actors, so proud to have worked with him. Not the most interesting person on earth. And at that time, he was very much in character, the way he was in those days. So he was really uninteresting. And I remember having these lunches with him and being like, what is happening? When can I go home? But he finally walked me through improv. By the time we had our third lunch together, it opened my eyes to what acting could be. End of quote. And I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen of the Actors Room, what I just quoted is loaded with nuggets of description of Robert De Niro. When Robert De Niro gave his interview on Inside the Actors Studio interview with James Lipton, I looked forward to that. You have no idea. I couldn't wait to hear De Niro talk about acting. And I got to tell you, that's got to be one of the most boring interviews I've ever seen in my life. And De Niro does give you great advice on acting in the interview. He does, no doubt. But De Niro as a person, yeah, Jody, he seems pretty boring. And you hate to say that, but in my opinion, Robert De Niro is a pretty boring guy. Wonderful actor. I mean, one of the best actors ever. But when you get right down to it, just a drab guy. I mean, he's just sort of in there. And when he was talking to James Lipton, it looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. And he sort of went through the motions in that interview, like, all right, this James Lipton guy keeps fucking calling me up. And I'm just going to shut him up, do that interview, and get the fuck out of there. And it is also rumored that Lipton would call up Brando all the time to get him to try to get him on Inside the Actors Studio. That would have been so great. Oh, God, Lipton, you didn't do it good enough. You didn't bother him like you bothered De Niro. You needed to get Brando on that show. Wouldn't that have just been the greatest thing? Oh, man. Man. Brando on Inside the Actors Studio would have been just, oh. But this is the point I'm going to try to make here. That Jody pinpointed him pretty well in that quote. Boring guy, kind of uninteresting, underwhelmed by just, meeting him. My wife met De Niro a long time ago in New York when she worked at a sporting goods store and said that he was just a sweet, quiet guy. So, but anyway, The point is that no matter how boring you might be, he is just one hell of an actor. And he's a good guy. He is. He's a phenomenal actor. And in Taxi Driver, you get to see one of the greats of all time give a performance for the ages. And now I'm going to point out scenes in the film that jumped out to me and made it wonderful. This film is wonderfully weird, different, creepy, but interesting. You're involved. You want to know what's going to happen next? So, here we go. You have to note, of course, the very first scene in the film when we're first introduced to Travis. He's trying to get a job at the taxi cab place. Awkward off the bat, trying to make jokes and just being uneasy. He's trying to be light and funny, and he's pissing off the guy he wants to get a job from. So right away, you get a good look at Travis. He's a uneasy, awkward kind of guy. You also get a great look at Travis's character when he's done with the shift and he walks into the diner and there's other cabbies sitting around the table. Watch his acting. When he comes into that diner, he doesn't have to say a word of dialogue. You get him. He's just going through it. Trying to be comfortable in that world. He just can't be. There's so many demons in him. The war. Driving around New York City in the 70s. And taking in all the shit. All the things he sees in the back seat. The scene where he goes and meets Betsy for the first time. He's been watching her. When he's not working, he watches Betsy, who works for a campaign, sort of like what do they call that? They're campaign funders, campaign workers for a political figure. And she's working at the campaign headquarters. Travis has been watching her, like a stalker. She notices him. And when he finally brings up the courage to meet her, he walks right into the headquarters. And that scene, his confidence, me personally, me doing that would have been impossible. I can't do that. Just taking the plunge when you have a huge crush on somebody and you walk right up to them, introduce yourself, and ask them out, I've never done that. I can honestly say that. Ladies and gentlemen, I've never done that. And Travis does that. How hard is that? Hard to do. And Travis does it confidently. The way he walks in there, he's got the nice suit on, right? Looking dapper. As dapper as Travis can look. And he goes in there very confidently and introduces himself. It brushes Albert Brooks aside. And like he's not even there. And gives a wonderful scene with Shepard. And then they have lunch together at the diner, restaurant. That scene also very good. Between Shepard and DeNiro. It flows nicely. It looks like they're just sitting there having a conversation. The next one of note is when Travis and Betsy go on their date. This shows how disjointed, confused, and clueless Travis really is. When he takes Betsy, this beautiful woman, who agrees to go out with him. She is light years out of his league. Sorry, Robert, but she is. I mean, you've gotten in the door, buddy. Don't fuck this up, and he does. He takes her to a dirty movie. This goes to show you how fucked up Travis really is. She's like, oh, what are you doing? Why are we going to see this movie? Because the looks of the poster before, it's like, is this a good idea? And she asked him that. And he says, oh, yeah. I see couples coming in and out of here all the time. Couples go to see this. And that could be true. But Travis, really? And he says that I've seen this movie before. He thinks it's a good idea, it's appropriate to take this beautiful woman who probably really hasn't seen a porn in her life to that movie. If that isn't the biggest indicator of how sideways he is, I don't know what. There's nothing. That's it. That's what blows my mind about this character. A child would know that, right? Where is this guy? I don't know. And that's where I struggle with understanding him. Because he says, I really don't know anything about movies. That doesn't matter. That's what I mean. Like, okay, so he doesn't, watch a lot of movies. You should know that. Taking Betsy to that's a bad idea. He doesn't get it. And he's like, I could take you to another movie. Please don't go. Because she's pissed. She's done. That's it. He lost her. Right. And that sort of sets up the rest of the movie because he goes off and when he sees Jodie Foster's character, Iris, get into his cab, she wants to get away. He takes it upon himself to fix that situation. He's got to do something. He's going to lose it. He's preparing himself to make a difference. Why not? Why not? Because he gives the next scene I'm going to talk about with actor Peter Boyle, who I haven't mentioned, and also a very good performance. I like Peter Boyle a lot. And he's explaining to DeNiro, who's sort of pouring his heart out at one point, you think too much. He's like, you think too much. Get laid, get drunk. You're young. God, you got your whole life in front of you. Okay? And I understand. You went through a lot in the war, and maybe you're not mentally all there. But try not to think too much. Enjoy life. Especially at your age, man. And he's trying to get through to him. Peter Boyle's character. Wizard. His character is named Wizard. Sorry. The next scene I really like is when DeNiro is trying to buy the guns. And they go into this little hotel room, and the guy who sells the guns has them all laid out. And the way he talks, the guy who's selling the guns, he's like, that's a pretty little number. Yeah, look at that pretty little number. Or the way he talks about the guns. What a salesman. I believe it. I'm like, wow, that's a beauty right there. Look at that little beauty. Look at that. Perfect. Yeah. He's such a good salesman. Travis Bickle, he buys them all pretty much. See, how much for the whole thing? Travis is going to do some freaking damage. My favorite scene in the movie, for me, is when Scorsese makes his appearance. He's in the back. He tells him to pull over. And De Niro does some amazing acting as well in this scene with Marty in the back. I wonder how wonderful that was for De Niro to have the director, who he respected very much, acting with him. De Niro's moments reacting off of Scorsese in the back seat are perfect. His eye movements, the way he studies him. I mean, he's really, what's this guy all about? I got to keep an eye on him. And also, a great exercise, a great acting exercise that Marty gives De Niro is when he tells De Niro to keep the meter running. Because Travis thinks he just pulled over, this ride is done, I put the meter down, and he's going to pay me. That's not the case. The guy in the back seat, Scorsese, I'm not done. We're going to sit. Keep the meter running. And Marty's character in the back seat makes him turn the meter back on. Because he says it several times. Because DeNiro's just looking at him. The ride's over. No, it's not. Not until I say so, says the man in the back. Put the meter on. And DeNiro doesn't move, but he makes him turn it back on. That's an acting exercise. Convince him. Obviously, you're not convincing him. And you see DeNiro put the meter on. The dialogue of Scorsese in that cab is gold. I bring this up in my show. Movie gold. Scorsese is a pretty good actor. And he fit that role too well. Is that bad? Or is he just a great actor? But I believed him. And that's my favorite scene in the movie. I've seen this movie 100 times. At least. Is that bad? Is that sad and bad? I've seen this movie like 100 times. And that's my favorite scene. Got to talk about the "Are you talking to me?" The biggest line in film history, right? You talking to me? How many times a day is someone quoting this movie just on that line? Are you talking to me? You probably did it this week. It was improv. I think most people know that. And Scorsese says the biggest influence was watching Brando do the same thing in a movie called Reflections in a Golden Eye. I take that back. The most underrated performance of Marlon Brando ever is Reflections in a Golden Eye. And that's where he got that. Where he told DeNiro, man, this would be good. Like Brando did in that movie. And it was DeNiro that came up with the line. The next great scene is between DeNiro and Keitel. When he goes up to the pimp to get a date with Jodie Foster's character, Iris. And the way DeNiro and Keitel interact, and the way Keitel fucks with him. And DeNiro's not having any. He's so disgusted by the pimp. It's so plain. And, because Bickle's a dork. He's just a dork. He's a dork. And the pimp sees that, points it out, And Travis is just like, dude, you are slimy as hell. I might be a dork. Okay. But you're slime. You're sleaze. I despise you. So good. And before we get to the ending, I forgot to mention the scene between DeNiro and Foster in the diner where she's pouring sugar all over her toast and they're just having a conversation. And you can tell the research they did together before they went on to do that scene. They were comfortable. And I have to point out that DeNiro knew that. Working with Foster was going to be challenging. And they worked through that. And Jodie Foster is a wonderful actress. And it shows you there was time and effort put into that scene. You could plainly tell. Because it was so laid back. And she shouldn't be that laid back. But she is. It's like, wow. Whoa. It reminds me of Buffalo 66. Got to bring this up before we end the show. Because I think it's so important in art, in film, and just the way somebody, an artist, goes about their work. Because in Buffalo 66, created by Vincent Gallo. There's something that Gallo did to Jan Michael Vincent that only Jan, who has passed, and Vincent know. But, man, Jan Michael Vincent was so vulnerable and relaxed and just, I don't know. I can't really, there aren't many moments I'm mesmerized by. But Gallo got something out of Jan Michael Vincent. That's all I'm saying. That I've never seen before. I can't wrap myself around it. I just appreciate it. The same thing could be said for Jodie Foster's performance. Just being so comfortable and there in the moment with DeNiro. Priceless, great art. So let's talk about the final scene. It was gory. It was almost too real. And I mean, and this is early in Scorsese and De Niro's career. And man, you get a good look at how he treats violence and how real it could look. Folks, this is, of all the films you're going to see in your life, most violent films are cinema. This scene, I don't think it's cinema. It's so independent. God bless these independent movies. Holy shit. I don't know where I'd be without them. I enjoy all the cinema stuff today too. Not all of it, some of it. But it's films like Taxi Driver that you should really appreciate because it seems so real. That's art to me. I think my brother feels the same way. He's an artist. Fucking phenomenal one. I told him that today. Or was that yesterday? He's been doing some great work lately. Just phenomenal. He's in it. We call it the zone. In the zone. And he's just been pumping out phenomenal artwork. And he's a realist in his art too. He draws realness. He's not all about the abstract stuff. And I appreciate the abstract. He's a realist. He draws reality. He tries to capture that. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I see. And he appreciates that too. That something real, something you can go, holy shit. Got it. I got it, Marty. I got it, Robert. I got it. Taxi Driver, 1976, in the actor's room. Done. One of those films where I go 10 out of 10. To me. To you, it might be a 6. After you watch, you get maybe a 5.5. But there you go. The ones I appreciate. And all the performances, like I said, wow. Whew. Hope everybody out there is having a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Actors Room, highlighting one of the greatest independent feel movies. This has an independent feel. And it should. The grittiness of New York City. You want to see what New York City was like back in the day, 1974. This was filmed in 1974. Came out in 76. Wow. I mean, that was New York, man. Back in the day, you talk about character in a city. Okay. There are people alive today remembering that New York going, that was New York to me. It's just too nice today. When I lived there, it was really good. It still had its character, right? But it was pretty clean and pretty safe. In the 70s, it wasn't clean. It wasn't safe. It was gritty, dirty, real. I mean, it had problems. And it's captured in this film. in more ways than one. Thank you once again for taking the time, hearing me just babble about film. Stay tuned for my very first interview coming at you soon. I'm more excited than nervous. I was more nervous than excited about a week ago. But me and this wonderful actor, and his name is Russell Sams. I can tell you his name. Maybe you can look him up and appreciate the things he's done. He's been in the business for a while. We're the same age. And he did a few performances back in the day I love and mean a lot to me. So when I talked to him on Thursday, we had a nice conversation. It was a conversation. And halfway through it, I finally settled down. I was nervous. I was. And I'm just so excited to do this. So stay tuned. I wanted to just flow, have a nice convo with Russell. I want to call him Russ. It's Russell. I can't wait. Watch Rules of Attraction. And the recent passing of James Van Der Beek, very sad, and you know, he really wasted away, and you don't want to see it. You know, James was in Rules of Attraction, the same movie that Russell was in, and if he wants to talk a little bit about James, I told him, I said, whatever it is you don't want to talk about, that's fine, but if you want to talk about certain things, you want to bring James up, I think they only met a few times, you know, that'd be fine too. So the passing of Van Der Beek, very sad. Shout out to the family and friends, and you just don't want to see that. You know, of course, James was around my age too. What's going on? What is going on? Getting old is for the birds. But hey, I'm 49, I'm not that old. I'm on the back nine, folks. I'm on hole number 12? 11 or 12, right? Those of you around my age, do you do that? Okay. I say I'm on hole 11. 11. You hate thinking about that stuff. I don't want to bring you down. All right. May God bless you. Thanks for listening once again. Put in that movie tonight. I'm trying to think. The last movie that I saw that affected me was Weapons. It came out last year. Amy Mannigan gives one heck of a performance. I was like, what the hell is that? Weapons is a horror/comedy. I enjoyed it. Not movies done recently grabbed me. That one did. We watched it 2 nights in a row. Watch Weapons. I think you'll like it. So go ahead and do that and enjoy art. I'm trying to say this in every show I do. Appreciate it. And hopefully you watch something great tonight. If not, I'm sorry. There's always a new day. All right, folks. I'm out. Hope all is well. Have a good one.